Many times we seek safety in our relationships. We seek safety in the partnership. So if one person is fully resourced in their relationship, in their day, in whatever is going on, maybe they've eaten, they've rested, they've had a free space to talk, that might be a good place to say, yes, I'm fully resourced. But to actually ask permission, hey, are you feeling resourced and equipped to hear what I have to say? And, and I shared an instance where, there was one time, I think maybe Isla was really young, or maybe it was even Ari, but I'm sure we've had many instances like this where, you've come home from the office, you haven't eaten, or I've come home and I'm, just starving and want to eat. And of course I see a whole, all the dishes just displayed out and everything's just, dismantled. And for me, is this the right time to actually have a conversation about, hey, who's loading the dishwasher right now? Because it goes down to, do I feel safe to be able to bring this up to you where you can actually hear it without taking it personally? There's no judgment on your character that you didn't, or I didn't load the dishwasher, right? And maybe you did have a bad day. Maybe you did have a bunch of things going wrong. I'm not going to tell you that. And if there's that one thing that I tell you, hey, what's going on with the dishes today? Or I make a silly joke thinking that it's light, but then you take it personally, or I take it personally, then there we go. Then it's like the spiral and then the dynamic, because the first part of this is, are you resourced to hear this conversation? Are you well equipped to hear what I'm going to say? And most of the time, if we are not asking for permission or consent to have these conversations, well, then it's probably not going to go as well as you like. And the other person can and should have the free will to say, actually, no, it's not the right time. I just got home. I'm starving. Why isn't there any food? Or, where's the food? And there should be enough love and transparency and non-judgment where we can have those conversations to say, actually, no, this isn't the right time.
Yeah. I totally hear you, and you do this very well, because I do, like, pretty much even when you walked in for this podcast, we were like, hey, are you resourced to do like conversation? Did you eat? And I don't tend to eat on shoot days, but I was like, yes, but I'm fully resourced. I haven't eaten, but I have fully resourced because, I want to maintain a certain energy level. So you're really good at actually checking in with the person before even, this was not a conflict, or this is not a thing that we were going to have a discussion about. It was just a podcast, but you're like, hey, are you resourced? So you're constantly checking in, which I think is phenomenal. But I think the reason why it works for us also is because there was a point in our relationship where, I don't know what led us to introduce this idea, but get introduced to the idea even to say,
kids,
hey, let's kind of like check in if we are ready to be able to have those difficult conversations, and before just jumping into them, because previously we were just jumping into them based on whatever it was, right? But then we got to a place where we said, it's probably like good to check in before we actually jump 2 feet into something that might not be pleasant.
Well, I think also to frame it appropriately, I think it's also the container and context. Mm-hmm. Right? I think before, when we were very early on in our relationship and we were new parents, or I was pregnant, or, lots of the hormones going wild in having our first child together and learning the way we do things, because we had just moved back to the States in a new city and we're building our life together. And so a myriad of so many different things and ways we do things. So it was bringing up a lot of conflict where we needed these tools. I don't think we really even knew some of these tools. And so we were operating, both of us, from these dysregulated nervous systems that were just so ready to just fire at every and any chance that we got. But when we're creating not only a safe space, not only safe boundaries where we're both in the ring together, and creating containers where we actually feel supported and we have the support. And that's why we kind of started to look into, some of these tools. I think, I remember and I recall many times where we would get into these arguments and it was this like friction and conflict where there were days where, we didn't speak, or we would kind of walk around the perimeter of what it was until we said, hey, why don't we have a safe word? Let's have a safe word. And that's the second thing, right? So first, to be able to ask, hey, are you feeling resourced? Are you feeling equipped to hear the conversation? So ask for consent, ask for permission. And the second thing is, are you feeling, do we feel supported right now so that we can have this conversation? Or do we need to shelf it because it might be too triggering?
Or it might be that we got into the conversation because we felt we were resourced. And then while in the conversation, we realized maybe not fully ready where it's going, or it's going in a direction that I don't think I can really handle it. Or we have both fired up, or one of us have fired up, where it's definitely that they had a wrong judgment of that they were resourced. And then we go to the safe word. So I think first step,
pick a safe word.
Permission. And then if it's not working out, it feels like, well, we got into the territory, but it's kind of like going into a way where we are about to say something that's not true, but it's going to hurt. And that's why we are going to say it, because we want to win this right now.
Yeah.
Is we introduce the safe word, which for us is Hakuna Matata.
It's true. It's very true.
So I was bringing attention to when we use Hakuna Matata.
Yes. And so, and for those of you listening who are like, oh, I never thought of having a safe word. I think it's now we actually even use it with our children. Yeah. And I think it's so great I know we're talking in context of like romantic partnership relationships, but I think it's also safe to say for the closest people in your life. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, wow, I wish I had a safe word. Even, when things get crazy with my aunt or my bonus mom, or if we're trying to bring up something, but we can't resolve a situation with maybe some of my other family members or some of my closest friends, right? And so I think this can be adapted or adaptable to some of the most important relationships in your life. Again, but both parties have to be okay to walk that journey together. It takes two people. Because I can imagine, I can just think back in relationships that I've been in previously, love relationships, or even friendships, where I've asked a particular question like that. Are you resourced to hear this? Are you well equipped to hear what I'm about to tell you? And they were not, or there was a violation of a boundary. And that just gets into murky waters and murky territory. So you want to also make sure that both people are actually consenting to this dynamic of having a container where both people are supported.